Okay, it is 6 o'clock. We're going to call this to order. I'm going to make the usual announcement that this is the opportunity for the public to suggest an addition of topics for discussion or to address topics of interest with the presentation limited to 3 minutes. And look here. Police chief got us a real clock. Oh, so all speakers will conduct themselves in an orderly and lawful manner. All speakers will be recognized prior to speaking and will announce their name and address to be included in the minutes. State law prohibits the mayor and members of the city council from commenting on any statement or engaging in any dialogue with any appropriate agenda item being posted on without it being posted on the agenda. That's under Texas open meetings law. So with that enforced, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's what I was going to comment about. I had to watch this via Zoom, the last meeting, because I was out of town, and there were several people who didn't have their mics on or didn't talk into the mics. And when you're trying to hear what's being said, it was frustrating. So just a reminder to all of us to speak into the mics.
Hear that? Yep.
Thank you.
Everybody, please. The same thing for any citizens. We have the speaker up here also, the microphone. Okay, starting off, the first person on the agenda is Matt. You get the lid off. Matt's our police chief. I guess y'all all know, should know that.
Who's timing you?
Myself. Here you go. Ready? Look, there you go. Is the mic working now? So real quick for yesterday, we took possession of our 2023 Chevrolet Tahoes. I have one here outside tonight to demo to the council and to the residents. So after the meeting, I'll be here for a short period of time to demo and let them look over the new stuff. There you go.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Can you donate your time?
He will, yeah.
Okay, Mike, this time we got you in front of Andrea. How'd that happen? Oh, okay.
I have a page full of things, Mike Hankins, Tanyard Road. I have a list of things, but to keep time short, I'm going to skip a few. Number one, I saw in the Temple paper some bad news about the city. People should not send bad news to a newspaper. If they work for the city, they should be fired, in my opinion. If you have something nice about the city, send it to the Temple paper. If you don't mention it, except for your friends. Contacting PB public media. Okay, I skipped that. Speed limit. We're going to have a parks committee. I might be in, I might not. But I recommend all parks have a speed limit set down at 15 miles per hour. I live on Tanyard Road, which goes to Oakmont Park. And every morning, a lot of people walk on the street with their dogs down to the park. So I would like to see where the speed limit sign is on Oakmont. Homestead Street comes up to Tanyard. Make the speed limit starting right there, all the way down to the park, because that's where all the people walk their dogs. Think about it. I'm going to leave the rest for my time. I'd like to give 1 minute and 51 seconds to my wife.
Okay, Andrea, it's your turn.
You're going to be hiring a new city manager. Before you hire a new city manager, I would like you to revisit the job. Before you hire a new city manager, I would like you to really seriously consider going over the powers of the city manager here in Morgan's Point. I would like you as a city council to reassert some of those powers. I do believe very strongly that you should be the ones that hire department heads, or at least the police chief, the fire chief, probably the finance director, and maybe some other key positions. The city manager could kind of evaluate them, give you input, but you should be in charge of these people. I think it would prevent that the city administration can be turned against you. It would force cooperation. It would provide more checks and balances. Another thing that I would like, once you have candidates, I don't think that happened last time, unless I was on vacation. I think it would be nice if you introduce the top 3 candidates or something to the population. You will probably get some input, and it might be bad. You know, you might get input for the wrong candidate, and you actually listen to what the people tell you, but I guess it's just one of those things. So please introduce your top candidates before you make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Donna? I use everybody's first name. I feel like everybody knows each other here, so don't, forgive me if I don't use your.
Okay, that's fine. Donna Hartman, 112 Great West Loop. Good evening, council. And first, once again, I want to thank the council for taking such a high road during this time. I'm so proud of you and your character and how you conducted yourself. I wanted to speak about as far as interim city manager. I know Kerry has been doing that, and Kerry does an excellent job, and he knows what he's doing. However, I have a big concern, and if this is cleared up in a few months, we could go right back to him assuming this, but my concern, as always, is our city audits. They're working on the audits now. We're making some progress. As you know, we have been dealing with this issue for several years. We had, when our previous city manager stepped down, he had told us the audits were being done. He gave us February, then he gave us June. And then when he left and we brought on interim Mr. Reed, and I went in and volunteered for about 4 months, we found out that they had not been started at all, which we thought they were. So our number one priority to our new city manager was audits. It was 2 years and absolutely nothing was done on our city audits. It is so important we get these done. Not only is it important to the citizens and residents and for transparency, it's the law. And I go back as far as I know, somebody one time said, oh, it's all the council. I've been talking about audits, and those of you that have been to council meetings know it was just every time. In fact, one person, when I started talking about the audits in the audience, said, there she goes again. It's so important. It's so important. We've just got to get this done. I noticed when I was looking up our master plan in February of 22, I did not support doing the master plan at that time, and neither did another council person, not because we didn't need a new master plan, but because the audits weren't done, and it's in the minutes. So if you want facts and not just people's opinion, go look on the city agenda and the minutes for February of 2022, and you'll see how gravely concerned we were about that. Nothing happened on these audits till January of 23. We have been 8 months into the audits. We were told July, then we were told September, and now we've told October. Please, please keep this a priority. Kerry will be overwhelmed if he has to take care of that business and take care of our city. He's quite capable of doing that. I have no problem with that. But please, let's continue to make this a priority. Once again, thank you, council, for the conduct that you've had the last month. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Ronnie?
Hello, Ronnie Snow, 2 Frank James. First of all, I want to thank all y'all for putting up what y'all had to put up with. And it's not y'all. It was the fallout from, I could take blame for it and everybody else before y'all. And y'all are the one that are paying the price for it. And I want to apologize for all that. I'd like to, as we move forward, looking for a city manager, I think we need to start from scratch and go out and look for one. I've been there. I know it's hard, but take your time. I ask that, I'm going to go ahead. First and foremost, we need someone who's going to be mature, someone who can take constructive criticism if given to them at all. Would like to see some kind of probationary period if they haven't done what they were hired to do. Someone self-motivated and can do their own job. Someone who doesn't divide the council employees and group them into teams. Someone who doesn't go on Facebook to stir the pot if they don't get their way. And that's all I got to say about that. Other 2 things, and y'all probably can't do nothing about it, but I would like to see the employees and council not using phones while we conduct meetings. I think it's not right. And then I would like to also see if y'all find somebody or whatever, I'd like to see someone from the council signing checks again. This was something that was taken away, which had a lot of transparency to it. You can really learn a lot about what goes on and where the city money goes. And that's not for a bad thing. That's things that I learned things that we paid for that in a million years I never would have known that we paid for. So I think that's something. Just if one, and y'all may not even have time to do it, but you could talk to other council members before me, and I'm gonna tell you it was very helpful. So thank y'all so much. I'm sorry y'all taking the fall out for everything.
Lim?
Lynn Milam, 28 Morgan's Point Boulevard. And I just wanted to speak for Kerry. I think Kerry he would be a great interim because he has a great respect, and the other staff have a respect for him. He knows them. He knows all of what was going on with the town. And from what I've done, trying to do my due diligence, found out that the last time you paid $35,000, that could be part of a road, that could be part of one of these gals' salaries, that could be part of all kinds of things. And have somebody that knows what's going on right now, and also somebody that's not related to the family or close relations to the family. I'll just tell you this, and this is the truth. I was at a party not too long ago. It was in Belton, and with some of the muckety mucks in Belton, and they didn't know I lived in Morgan's Point. And I walked in on conversation, and they said, "Oh, everybody knows about Morgan's Point. It's the revolving city managers, and they're all wackadoos." And that's what they said. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Lim.
What was the last part?
Okay, then we're moving right along. That's all of the citizens' comments. We're going to go now, item number 1 is discuss appointing city secretary for fiscal year 2024. Ophelia is leaving us. She's retiring to a life of riches and luxury. And she has taken care of me for the last 2 years, so I don't know what I'm going to do. But I bet we can find somebody that'll be quite competent. So, Kerry, I'm going to let you take it from there.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Green. Really, just since the next council after this next Tuesday would be in October, there would be a gap that we would not have a city secretary. So, during the budget process, we had made it clear that we were looking to use Camille Bowser as her role as executive assistant / assistant court or city secretary. That's how we were going to transition her into that role. And once you look at your packet, there's a resolution supporting that. So, really, we couldn't find it in our in our ordinances, but I thought it was the city manager appointed that position. But the other people thought it was by council, so we didn't know if Neil could give us some guidance or anything.
I don't know how many years ago, it seemed like it was in the late 50s, the council.
You're not talking.
When you're home.
Several years ago, in a galaxy far, far away, the city council decided that that the council would appoint the city secretary. She would be responsible directly to the council, not to the city manager. That's the way that the council has worked. I don't know, the last 20 years probably anyway.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept Camille as our city secretary, or you
Well,
want
we
to
can't make
discuss
any
this? or-
decisions.
There are no
It's a
there's no
workshop.
action getting taken.
But I have a couple questions.
Okay.
And that is should Camille interview with council so we get to know her if she's going to be 40% of her job doing stuff we want? And then does the job description need to be updated? Because I have been reading it, and I think there's a lot in there that the city secretary today doesn't do. And do we want to look at that and say, we're fine with the city secretary not doing that? Or do we want to say, well, we have different expectations now as a new council? Do we want to take a moment on those two things, a job description, and does Camille want to interview for the position?
I mean, that's y'all's decision if that's really what you want to do.
Just a question.
So, I mean, yeah, obviously this is just a workshop, so
I had a question too, but it was just related to legality of it. In other businesses I've been in, we would have to post the position and open it up to the public. And then we could, and not saying that sometimes those positions weren't already filled, but is that legal to just say, we just want this person, or do we have to put it out for? Yeah. Okay, wonderful.
If you want to, if you want.
We're not gonna vote on it tonight
No,
either. We're just
that's-
No, I
discussing
just
it
have some
right there.
questions
Okay.
about it.
If you want to, you determine the process. If you want to post it and advertise it, that's up to the council. If you have someone in mind that you got 3 votes to hire, well, then you can do it that way.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure Camille wants it. I mean, she's not here tonight, which I know it was a last minute.
Right. No,
It's
I mean,
on
and
the
that's-
agenda.
that,
Yeah,
it is our, and her desire to be named city secretary.
okay,
So,
Okay.
okay.
I mean,
He
really,
is not gonna be here for the next council meeting after Tuesday. That's right?
Sh-
Yes, sir. You'll be here for Tuesday council meeting, but you won't be here for the one after that.
And then do we want to possibly consider if Camille wants the position to step in as an interim for 90 days or something? As a,
I mean,
if we're not going to post the job,
Right.
publicly, to go ahead and have a 90-day period of,
I mean, it would be.
so these are all questions, and I know
Right,
we
it would
can't
be,
decide.
it would be staff recommendation not to do that.
Okay.
So basically, probably through the budget process, there were some kind of hot topic items, and so I think as a show of good faith, but I mean, again, this is y'all's decision, y'all are the governing body, so really, it's up to y'all. And so, I mean, if there's more questions that y'all want to ask, but yes, Camille is expecting, Camille is ready to step into that role, and, Philia, you can speak on this for me too, but I mean, basically, she probably would be the most qualified city secretary we've ever had with her degree, basically.
Wow.
Well, I know she was Dalton's recommendation, and she's you guys' recommendation. I take that very seriously. Right. Okay, I just, I tried to get some ordinances and some different things, and I ended up doing it myself because I couldn't get it done. So I'm just not sure. It's a question, it's not a conclusion. Yeah. Should you give us her resume from when she first came on? Would that be helpful to us? Something.
Yeah,
on
no,
it.
yeah, I mean, y'all tell me what you want, and then that way we can have it.
I don't want her to create one, but.
No, right, I
had
mean,
to
but yes,
have
if we
one
have
coming
something
to
in
the
there that
city.
if you guys give me what you want to see before Tuesday, before we, have a resolution appointing her as city council or city secretary, then, those were kind of the things that,
So,
this is y'all's workshop, just y'all tell me what we need to do before the agenda or the next council meeting.
I would like to sit down and talk with Camille, because I want to make sure that she knows that we're going to be on her team. I want, just kind of just do some back and forth feedback. Maybe just say, as we're hiring her, we can kind of define the expectations a little bit. And I guess just not necessarily interview, because we already know she's got the qualifications, and we already know, I mean, for me, I'm kind of leaning toward hiring her by next Tuesday. But just, I guess more than an interview, more just kind of I don't know what's appropriate in a public setting, or if we would just meet with her one-on-one and kind of say,
Go into executive session and have a
yeah,
quick.
and have her visit with
you know,
us just
5
for a few
minutes.
minutes.
I don't think we have the prerogative to do that before the
On
council
personnel
meeting, because I
matters.
don't think it's in the agenda.
Well,
There
not
is there is an
today.
executive
No,
session.
I'm talking about the Tuesday meeting.
We don't have an executive session?
We do have one, but I put city manager vacancy, but I mean,
Oh, I see.
And I think we have to be more specific.
Right.
Unless I misunderstood
No,
the
you're right,
rules.
you're right, you're right.
So the only way that we could do it would be to have another meeting, and it would have to be a regular city council meeting, right, Neil? If you're gonna take and make a motion or make a recommendation and that kind of stuff, it can't be out of a workshop, right?
We're not voting on anything tonight.
Right, right.
Right.
But yes, you could call another special council meeting.
Yes, but it would have to be after Tuesday because we only have 72 hours. Yeah, yeah, that was my concern.
Use that mic. Sorry.
You are correct. You don't have time to post another meeting before the Tuesday meeting.
So we just got to figure out everybody's schedule to make that happen, or default to it. And
Yeah.
it's just, I guess the problem that I'm hearing is you want somebody by the 1st of October to fill for the next council meeting, right? But we can't do it. We've got a problem with time compression again. So you've got a couple options. I mean, you just say, okay.
You don't have to have anybody by this first, it's the second Tuesday in October, so
Oh,
it's
yeah,
only
but
gonna
I
be
mean,
around.
basically for the fiscal.
If y'all wanted to interview her or individually, even I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that. To do an individual, if y'all wanted to go by City Hall and interview her, and you don't have to have 5 of you, it could be 4 of you if you wanted to. And then we can put it on
Not 4, yeah.
and we can put it on the October agenda to vote on her, and she can, if y'all wanna do it that way.
But we can't talk to her as more than one person at a time. Two people at a time.
Two.
Yeah, so it would be,
Look, do you need to have
Well-
all 4 of you to talk to somebody at one time? I mean,
Is it worth just asking her if she'll step in as interim for the October meeting? And then it'll give us a little more time to make a,
I mean, we can do that, but, we've talked about whether it's privately or, however, but I mean, like regaining staff trust. And this is probably not heading in that direction.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
This
Carrie,
is
if I
y'all are the
can,
governing body, and I mean, yes, I mean, whatever we need to do to prove to y'all, but so obviously, me and Dalton had compiled the budget, and we wanted her at a higher grade, because that's really what a director, like a city secretary position, usually entails in a city our size. So we compromised, and we kind of went down, but, so some of these unending projects that the city can kind of constantly do would be update the job descriptions to be more accurate as to duties as assigned, because in a small city, it's not black and white like it is on a job description. There are numerous things that a person will do to fill in the gaps. So right now, we can do whatever y'all want. I'm just, for me, sitting in this chair, and again, I'm only sitting in this chair temporarily until y'all tell me something else, but my recommendation is to help kind of bridge and move the city along. I think y'all should hopefully trust staff recommendation.
yeah, Carrie, if I can jump in there. So a couple things, and that's one of the points I was going to make is, we as a council continue to discuss trying to heal the community, and not just the community, but the staff. So what kind of message are we sending if we just start throwing all these speed bumps in the way now? It occurs to me that over the last 6 weeks when we were going over budget, as we were discussing this position, her name continued to come up and nobody really threw a flag up then. So I'm not sure really, I mean, valid points. Hey, if you want to go talk to her, go talk to her. I'll tell you, I have all the confidence in her, in the world. And I just think that that's a step we need to take. There is so much turmoil around us, not just in this building right now, but in this city. If this is something that we make a bigger issue than it really has to be, all we're doing is adding fuel to the fire. I think she's more than capable. So I think if we want to do, if you feel it down inside your head and your heart that you need to go talk to her, knock yourself out. But I think we need to move forward and we've got to get the train going. And we're not going.
but by the same token, we as a council are going to be the person that appoints her,
Correct.
not the person, the group. So if we don't have a consensus of opinion because we don't know, if we just take, if the council is trying to be the overarching decider in the city, then we've got to do it as a council. And that's the part that is so difficult to do because of the open meeting laws. And-
Yeah, but no, I understand what you're saying, Pat, but this is something that is kind of just my observations is, I think one of the things we're missing as a council, and like you said, we have to do it as a council. We do that as a council if 3 of us say, we're doing it. I mean, we don't always have to all 5 of us agree.
Right.
And
I'm not suggesting that at all. This is one of the, as I remember from the budget discussion, this is one of the most senior level positions in the city. So
Well, actually,
why,
well, not really. With where we moved it in there, it's a step below all the directors. So,
but ultimately, I mean,
No, I mean, the police chief, the fire chief, the maintenance director, and all that. So where we settled on the budget, this is probably like seventh or eighth in the pecking order.
But isn't that on a pay scale level? I mean, my understanding is the pecking order of authority over the city is the city manager's first, and assistant is second, and the third person in charge of our city is the city secretary. Now, I could be wrong on that.
No, right, but then that's where the logic with the pay scale then makes sense, and that's to your point earlier, like about an interim one, because we talked about having a council retreat, and we'll talk about that at the meeting. But when we do it, whether I'm sitting in this seat or if I'm sitting just still as the assistant city manager and I'm preparing the budget next year, like I said, I've told y'all and I'll tell it again, that really next budget cycle, that position will be put back up as a director because that's where it belongs in this staff recommendation. So.
And we'll have more information then also. Right.
I would be very comfortable with each of us just going to say, hi, Camille, you come with high recommendations. And anybody who has any discrepancy that comes up between now and next Tuesday, otherwise we can put it for a vote next Tuesday. I don't think, we've all known that she's qualified, that she's ready to take the position. And so I don't think delaying it a month is going to help. I feel like if we just, I want to talk to her just to make sure she knows I'm on her team. I guess it's not an interview. It's just what I think would be the right thing to do, because I want to heal, some misunderstandings and things if possible. So I think any of us who want to do that, I think we can be welcome to do that. And I'd like to have us be ready to vote for this next Tuesday.
Okay, everybody agree on that? Step by City Hall or phone or whatever and get a hold of Bill and.
Carrie, can I
Meet
get her
yourself.
resume from when she first started? Okay, thanks.
And with that, we're gonna move on since we covered that. Now, the next item on the discussion is naming as interim city manager. So how do y'all want to do that? Open to our discussion.
Well, I think Carrie's been doing that job as a assistant city manager. That. And then we're going to buy some new batteries. Anyway, what are we naming? I mean, you're doing the city interim city manager right now as your assistant, right? Is that
Yeah, but
not
so kind of to go back to job description, really it says I can act as the city manager in his or her absence. It doesn't say really departure. So
Neil, is
really,
there a problem with just letting him roll?
No.
Okay.
I would have this as an agenda item for the council on Tuesday then to consider appointing an interim city manager.
Well, we have
Or can
the
he?
Council of Government representative here to talk to us about services they can provide the city so that Carrie can stay focused on the audits and his new hire and, get our financial integrity back in the city. So I hate to sidetrack him at this point. So do we want to
Well, I
hear from?
thought we were
I think
gonna-
we should hear from.
I think
from
we should
Jim.
hear from the COG, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's doing
Cog?
it. We have an interim city manager right now. I don't know that we have to do anything different, legally or otherwise.
Yeah, his job
Whatever services
description
City
does
Council
say.
provide, that's great, but we still need Carrie as assistant city manager, interim.
Right, right.
I mean, no matter what we do, so let's,
Yeah, Carrie's role isn't going to change. It just says, in the absence of the city manager, serves as the first administrator for city, provides administrative guidance to assigned departments, assists the budget development and administration, coordination city programs, assists in the development of long and short-term comprehensive plans to meet organizational and development needs of the city. And he's been doing that for at least a year, right?
or
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 years. I've only been here.
Jim, are you out there? You're out there. Would you come up? This is Jim Reed, COG, by the way, for those who don't know. Stud extraordinaire, and I only say that because he too flew Apaches. That's it.
And in the interim from the last time, we had a vacancy in our city manager position. I wasn't that involved in the city, but the COG did step in and help us on an interim basis to provide the leadership of our city. And they have different levels of support they can give us. So I'm not familiar with their services, so I was hoping I could learn about them.
Yeah, that was going to be my question to you I've got two hypotheticals for you, looking to see what what role you guys would play. So the first hypothetical would be Carrie stays on board as the interim city manager for, let's just say, an arbitrary amount of time. It's irrelevant at this point. We decide you're it. Take that role and run with it. In that scenario, what function do you see the COG playing to help Morgan's Point, to help Carrie, and help us? The other one would be, I guess, and Donna may be able to speak more to this one, I guess the role that was previously filled when we had an opening where I think, if I understand it correctly, the COG took the lead on that. Is that right?
Yes, we were your interim.
Okay, so if you could kind of just help us freshman newbies here.
With the consent of the council, would it be okay if I just walk you through a process? And that process is not a job interview for us. It's a process of all the options you have available, soup to nuts. And I'm not here to make a presentation about the COG doing it, but I will tell you what was involved the last time we did it. And if you choose to ask us for a proposal for your next meeting, we will do that. But we're here not to ask you for a job. We're here to talk to you about the process that a council goes through when they're trying to select an interim, what the options are available, and what a process a council can go through to recruit a new city manager, because ultimately you'll not want an interim, you'll want a new one. So let me just run through that real quick, and then I'll answer any questions that remain. First of all, there's not a right or wrong way. You just need to do what's right for your city. And whatever the majority of you can agree to do will be the process you'll go through. Basically, we use the TML guide to hiring a city manager. We brought these for you. Ryan has them. He'll hand them to you afterwards. It has sample guidelines, what to ask an interim firm, what to ask a consulting firm, the code of ethics for a city manager, sample interview questions. It's all in here. Basically, there are 3 steps they say when you lose your city manager you should do. First one is an appoint an interim, and they recommend you do that within the first week. Second one is ask your key staff members for an overview and a status report on all projects. That's supposed to be done, they recommend, within the first week. Third one is confirm your recruiting process within 2 to 4 weeks so that staff knows, hey, is there going to be turmoil? Are we hiring from within? What's the status of our jobs? Who's going to be our leader? All of that. They recommend that within 2 weeks. So here's some interim considerations. Option number 1, you've all talked about it. You can appoint someone within house. There are pros and cons to that. The pros are that person's usually known to the council and to the staff. Minimal extra cost. Normally an interim gets a bump in pay, temporary until that position is either permanent or they revert back to their other job. And a quick transition. They're already on board. If you pick Carrie, Carrie's here. He's already doing the job. You don't have to onboard him. There are some cons. This isn't cons of Carrie. This is cons generally when talking about this process. There is a shift of duties. If you take someone from their current job to an interim job, there's going to be a shift in their focus. Because, trust me, as having been your interim city manager, that takes a lot of time. It's a different focus than being your fire chief, or being your police chief, or being your finance officer. Number 2, they might ultimately be a candidate when you do your recruitment. And there are some people that think that you shouldn't have a candidate as the interim, because then other people who are outside looking at this job may not apply because they don't want to compete with someone who's on the inside and doing the job. Then there are loyalty and partiality issues. You know, it's just a reality of the situation. Option number 2, you can hire or contract with an individual or a firm. You all have done both before. You've hired an individual in the past to be your interim city manager, and they were here for a period of time. They didn't want the job long term. And when the council was ready, you hired a firm to go through a search process. You've also used a group like the COG. Last time this happened, we became your interim. and we were on board for about 6 months, and then we took you through a recruiting process. Pros to that, sometimes those people are considered to be impartial because they don't want the job long-term. It can serve a review function if you have questions about what's going on within your city. It keeps the staff focused where they're currently employed. And usually that person's not a candidate long-term. So they're not politicking for the job. They're holding the reins until you decide who the new person is. The cons, there are costs associated. There are contracting issues we'll go over in a minute. There is a transition time. And then I'm just going to say it, there's also staff loyalty issues. You know, the staff are loyal to the people who are on their staff. Some of them may not want an outsider coming in and kicking the tires and acting as their lead. So those are really your two options for the interim. Hire in-house, hire an individual or a firm, and there are firms that do that. It's not just the COG that does this. You can Google interim city management firms, and you can spend as much or as little money as you want. To shift over to the recruiting process, just because I think the two do work together, you have three options there. Number one, you can do it in-house. You as the council could form a subcommittee, say we're going to vet the candidates, we're going to write job descriptions, we're going to write the recruiting materials. I don't normally recommend that, but it has been done that way. Number two, you can contract with a recruiting firm. There's a cost associated with that. You all have paid recruiting firms in the past. The national average is somewhere between 25 and 40% of the annual salary. So in your case, you're looking somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000. That's the nature of the business for someone to take you through a recruiting. Not politicking for it, but just as a reference, we just put a proposal like this together for the village of Salado, and our fee was $10,000 to do a recruitment. We were not scoped to be their interim, although we've been their interim before many, many years ago. There are virtual and hybrid considerations. You can have a virtual city manager. I think ultimately you got to have someone who's going to sit at the table with you and sit eye to eye with staff. But I think that in this environment, you could have a remote worker that would spend some of that time that way. So those are options you can put in there. I would also tell you that as far as contracting and selections, you're going to have to look at your own procurement process. Because if you're going to select an interim firm or select a recruiting firm, you're going to need advice from your attorney as to whether or not you have to send that out for bid, and how long is that going to take, and do you have to write an RFP, and how long is that going to take. So this is going to sound like a plug for the COG, but I really don't care whether you hire us or not. You are members of us. You don't have to go through procurement with us. You can sign an interlocal agreement, and you're legal to go forward and do business with us. We have several interlocal agreements already in force with you for other services. Finally, the example of what we did last time. I'm not saying it's appropriate this time. I'm not saying it's doable this time. I'm not saying you want it done this way this time. But just so you know what was done. We placed a full-time staff member in the office, and they were there during normal business hours. We also then scoped one senior level staffer, which happened to end up being me, for one full day in the office and available to each of you and the department heads 24/7 by phone or virtually. This was right in the beginning of COVID, so it was a little bit different world we lived in. That senior staffer was on call 24/7. That senior staffer met with citizens, met with council members when they wanted to, met with staff members, rode with your code enforcement people to go and look at code problems, dealt with the PUC, dealt with developers, went to the planning and zoning commission meetings, all those sort of things. But we never scoped for that. We just said that it was an on-call because there's no way to predict what that was going to be. We served 6 months on a month-to-month interlocal agreement, which meant that with the 2-week notice, either one of us could terminate the agreement. No harm, no foul. At the end of that, the city council asked us to take you through a recruitment process, which we did at no additional charge because we were already under contract to you, so we just absorbed that as one of our duties. And that's how we did it last time. At this point, it's up to you all how you want to do it. The beauty of being a city council member, in my opinion, is that there's really only two things you have to do. Pass a budget and hire your senior staff. There's a million ways to do it between that. You can do it as a committee. You can appoint a subcommittee. You can decide you want to have meeting after meeting after meeting and do it as a council. You can hire from within. At the end of the day, you all just have to get around the table and decide what you're comfortable with and then go forward. So with that in mind, I'd be glad to answer any questions that that brief, very rapid overview did not cover. Did I cover your? Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, that was real helpful. Just give me a minute.
What does the market look like?
For city managers?
Yeah. What,
This is being recorded and live streamed, right?
yes, absolutely.
I work for 32 cities and 7 counties, and I will tell you that city managers usually last between 3 and 7 years. It's very rare to get one that lasts more than 5 to 7. And city managers, by and large, are looking for the next best thing, unless they're tied to a community because they feel embraced there. City managers leave for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's professional, sometimes it's political. And hey, they're professionals that need to make a living and raise their families. So you get no judgment from me out of that. Right now, it's no different than any other time. If you put your toe in the water and say, City of Morgan's Point Resort is looking for a city council, you're going to get half the people who are going to read the news clippings and say, I don't want to go there. And then you can get the other half and they're going to say, oh, I know how that works. I want to go there because I can fix it. So I don't think you have really a problem. I think you may be surprised by what the market will bear salary-wise. The city of Gerald just hired one 6 months ago, $188,000. Village of Salado just raised theirs from 120 to 158. So I don't know what the salary market will bear, and I don't know what your previous city manager was making towards the end of the tenure. But at that point, you're just going to have to decide how excited you are about the candidates that you cast a net out and you pull up and you say, no, I don't like this fish, I don't like this fish, I don't like this fish, but I really like these 3. And then you interview those 3 through whatever process you want to go through. And that process could be a subcommittee, it could be a citizens committee. There are a million ways to do it. So my recommendation is get an interim, then decide whether you're going to do a recruitment with a firm or an individual or in-house. And then this walks you right through everything you have to do. And there are some good ideas in here and some ideas that won't fit for you.
Excuse me. If we have a contract with SIDCOG to put somebody in the office during normal business hours, what duties would they perform that we are not performing, or would they duplicate some of the duties that we are performing?
They are not working for the city at that point. They are there to be the eyes and ears of the senior level staffer, if that's me, or if that's your Ryan Nelson, or if it's both of us, that is your interim. Because my board's not going to let me sit in your office for 40 hours a week. And so when a citizen comes in, rather than have to take Carrie away, and I'm not saying whether Carrie should be your interim or not, but right now, if a citizen comes in and they want to talk to the city manager, staff's probably going to get Carrie, which means Carrie's not doing CFO. So in this case, Amy, I don't have a staffer named Amy, so I can pick on Amy. Amy is sitting somewhere in the city offices. Someone says, I want to speak to the city manager. Amy gets up and walks over and says, I'm not the city manager, but what is your issue? What information can I take? And then she gets on the phone and on email and on text and finds, thus interim city manager.
Basically, your assistant.
They're the eyes and ears.
Administrative assistant, that's her duty, or that would be their duty.
That would be their duty.
Yeah, not to take any work or anything from any of our city employees, but just strictly your ears.
It's
essentially a proxy.
It's essentially a proxy. That's a very good way of putting it,
Verify it.
Councilmember Bishop. But, I'm not saying that that's a good thing for you this time. I mean, last time you had different council. You had a different set of trust and acceptance. You had different staffing. You were not staffed this robustly when we were here last time. You know, so this is a different dynamic. That's why I'm not here with a proposal saying, you ought to do this. At the end of the day, you all have to decide out of these options what you're comfortable with, you know, what shoe fits. And if it's the COG, you tell me, I'll come back, and then I'll try and sell you that the COG's the way to go. But if it's not the COG, then we'll just give you good resources and stand back and answer your questions. Because the COG's budget this year is going to be $86.9 million. I think last time we were here, we charged you somewhere around, Carrie, I think you looked it up, 36,000? 6 months we were here.
Not quite 6 months.
But whatever it was, I can tell you that it wasn't a major budget enhancer for us. We're doing it because you asked us to, and we're of service to the community.
Is there any way between now and Tuesday that you could get a proposal to us that we could consider on Tuesday?
I believe, even though it's Friday at 6:45, this is the part of my presentation where Urian runs out of the building because he knows the moment I say we, he says, what's that? You got a mouse in your pocket or something? Because he knows that I'm going to say yes, and he's going to have to go dust off something and get it over to you. But we have to know what strategy you want. I mean, if you want me to put someone here 3 days a week, that's not going to happen this time. I would not be able to be responsive to that. If you say we like the process we went through last time and we want to try that again, I can tell you that we would be able to get a proposal to you very quickly.
Why don't we look at what we did last time? Let's look at their proposal, and then if we need to tweak it, we'll sit down and see if there's anything we need to adjust. But not knowing, and I was here at the last one, but last time I think we just had a couple of people do most of the interviewing, so I wasn't in on the whole process. So maybe this time we need to look at it and then see if we need to tweak it. And if we don't get it by Tuesday, we can do it again. We don't have to have it by Tuesday, but it would be nice.
If you tell me, Mayor, who you want to have it to distribute it to council, so we're not in that business. If you want us to send it to Ophelia or send it to Carrie or whoever, I'm confident between Urian or I, you'll have something by tomorrow.
Want to have it sent to each one of you individually? Y'all want it done sent to you, each one of you?
Sure, for the meeting.
Staff.
I think it's appropriate for us to send it to staff and let them distribute it.
Right, and it's on the agenda already for Tuesday, right?
Right.
Yeah, so this would just be the, getting us a step
When are we going to have
further.
time to talk about it?
We can talk about it now, but we're going to need a document to
And we still have a
be
workshop.
specific.
We still have a workshop prior to the council
Oh,
meeting.
that's
at 5
true,
o'clock.
right.
So-
Executive session in the, that was.
I think, Jim, you gave us 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 options, and we're just taking one.
Oh, no, it's just, I'm not taking any options. It's just a
No, I'm just-
consideration.
Okay. I just think we're got the horses and the stables and everything way ahead of the carriage.
Well, according to Jim, we should be making sure we have an interim the first week. So I feel like I'm running a
have
little
an
bit
interim.
behind. I understand, we have an acting. Yes, I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's probably a legal definition, but in fact, it's the same thing, only, you can argue semantics all day long.
Well, hey, Jim, can you help that out? Because in other cities that have an assistant city manager, even the same process would work, that either they would name me interim or another firm like you're presenting. So really, an interim does need to be made even if there is an assistant city manager.
I would rely on your attorney, but I will tell you what my opinion is through 30 years of being involved in this business. I think that it is always important for this council to step up and to appoint a person that they have faith and confidence in, that is empowered by their resolution, so that if that person has to make a tough call on staffing, they know that they have the authority to make it. If that person has to make a call on who's going to be able to expend money, You know, because city isn't just linear, guys. It isn't just, okay, there's a $5 million budget, let's spend $5 million this month. There's cash flow considerations. There are decisions that need to be made. I was here, the police chief, who is no longer here, wanted a car right now. We needed a new motor grader. You know, we had to decide who goes first, who goes next. When are we going to space out these expenses? And somebody has to do that. And in my opinion, you owe it to your city staff for them to know that you all are acting with one voice and you're saying, this is our person. This is the person that is going to run our city and is the interim city manager and is empowered to do everything that a city manager is empowered to do. Because, guys, I'm just telling you from my point of view, you know, without leadership, staff starts to wonder where, you know, was all that was true that was said, and was this, and it quells all that because it puts someone in there that's focused, and you guys take an action that says we support our staff, we want them to be able to go forward, we want them to do the great work they're doing, and the leader is going to be Carrie, or the leader is going to be Bob, who's done this for 40 years, and we're going to hire him from this firm, or the leader is going to be the COG, or the leader is going to be East Central Texas Council of Governments that does this. But name someone, get in a room, make a decision, come together as council and say, this is how we're going to do it. Carrie deserves that. Staff deserves that. I mean.
And we deserve that.
And you deserve that.
I think that's already been pretty much
It ought to be a
decided.
thoughtful process and not a knee-jerk reaction is my point.
Absolutely.
I think
I
we
fully
pretty much
agree with
decided that Kerry's our man, and I think we need to just go ahead and go from there and go to the next process. Do y'all agree to that?
I thought we were going to get a proposal from COG also.
Do what?
I thought we were going to get a,
I said, go along and get a proposal. Do you want to get the proposal before we name the interim city manager?
they were going to propose on an interim city manager function. We're not talking recruiting yet.
No, right.
No, but what Jim was just talking about is name somebody that the council agrees is the person or the group that we want to have it done.
And you're posted to do that, my understanding is on Tuesday.
Yes.
So
But
you
we
have
haven't
until-
discussed it.
And you have, now you're posted.
We have not discussed it.
You're now posted to where when I say, are you done with your questions? I'm going to grab my staff and we're going to get out of here.
Right.
And we're going to let you talk about us. And we're going to let you turn around to the city staff and say, some of you were here last time. Was that Jim Reed? Did that work? And then you're going to get your questions answered. And it may be a long night for you all, but I think it's appropriate, at the risk of giving you advice, I think it's appropriate that you sit here tonight until you all have decided, as your agenda says, discuss about what we're going to do about an interim and discuss what we're going to do about recruitment. And if that means we're going to get some proposals between now and Tuesday, or we're going to do our due diligence between now and Tuesday, or we're going to say, Carrie's our guy on Tuesday, but we want the right to do some more proposal searching, whatever it is you all decide, my unsolicited opinion is you need to make that decision tonight about what your process is going to be.
I think that's a good point, because if you decide that
Mike,
consensus, if you have a consensus that Kerry's going to be the interim city manager, well, then Jim doesn't have to come back with a proposal for doing that service. He gives you a proposal for how you want to handle the job search.
So the bottom line is, to Neil's point, have I answered all your questions?
Not yet.
Okay, as soon as the answer to that is yes, we're going to leave. And then I hope someone is empowered to call us or text me. Everybody should have my cell phone number. If not, it's 254-654-1595. Your city staff has it in their phone. Everybody else seems to have it. And I'll get a phone call tonight that says, hey, Jim, we want a proposal. Or, hey, Jim, thanks for coming and talking to us. We don't want a proposal. Or, hey, Jim, can you come on Tuesday and talk about recruitment only? Whatever you want, we'll come do. Just give me a call. So, questions?
Well, I'm still going back to the point. There's a lot of options, and we're just grabbing the first one that flies by the window because it's quick.
I don't hear that.
I hear that because we haven't talked about an interim.
Which
Could
you're going
be
to do
a
when
lo-
I leave.
But it could be the person who wants to come in for 6 months because they need money to go to Florida. You know, we have not talked anything about those other options. And, I mean, it's not fair to Carrie to say, okay, you're the interim guy, when nobody's discussed it. I don't think.
Let's discuss it.
And
We don't even know what we're discussing. That's the whole point, Dorothy. We don't know what the options are. Who are the people out there that we can hire as in research?
What I heard is that we don't have to make a decision tonight. In fact, we can't because it's a workshop.
Yes.
But we will talk about what we're going to do between now and Tuesday so that we can make a decision. So one of the things that I'm suggesting that we do is that one option is to get a proposal from the COG. Another option is maybe we check into an interim city manager outsource business that puts in interim city managers for a period of time. Another option could be Carrie. I don't know where we are on the audits, but
Well, I mean,
so I think we discussed the options and what we're going to do between now and Tuesday. And if we can't make a decision on Tuesday, then, we'll decide what the next steps are so we can make a decision.
I think the bigger point that if I could, to focus you a little bit is, there are some things that you may just say, that's a non-starter, I'm not going to support that. It could be that you're saying, I think we're going too fast, so I don't want to make this decision on Tuesday, and I want a two-tiered approach. I want on Tuesday to appoint Carrie, and then I want staff instructed to get in touch with 3 recruiting firms to find us an interim. You could say that. All I'm saying is that you all are going to have to talk and be honest with each other, and someone say, under no circumstances am I hiring an interim firm because I don't want to wait 3 weeks. Well, that option could very quickly, through consensus, get off of your list, and then do we hire an interim agency or do we hire Carrie? And then you all talk about that some more. It's a workshop. That's what y'all do. So, I guess my point is I've given you 3 options. You may have ones of your own that you've come up with. But in broad brush, you either hire within, you hire a firm that will send someone to you that you'll have to interview and decide you like or don't like and is a good fit for the city, or you hire the COG, and it doesn't have to be CITCOG, it can be the East Texas COG because they do management services too. Although David and I would have to negotiate whether or not I'm going to let him come in here and do this. But that's what this is about. So what other questions can I answer for you about interim services, not COG interim services, but finding an interim and or recruitment?
I don't want to rush it. I think that's the problem, that you feel pressure to do this. People expect us to do something right. And I think that you raised a valid point before about why are there so many football. 3 to 7, I got that. And that may just be maybe football coaches. When's the last time we had a 20-year football coach? They were dead for 19. There are some questions that we need to answer.
Yeah, and I think,
First of all, we gotta figure out what the questions.
yeah, and I'm trying to put it in 2 different buckets in my brain, my little pea brain. And one is,
So Jim, I think we appreciate you. I
okay,
think you guys can go home.
okay.
I have a 4-month granddaughter at home that I'd kind of like to go back
Yeah.
and see on Friday, so we wish you the best of luck. We're available by cell phone. You know how to find us. We love Morgan's Point. We love the work we're doing. Whatever decision you make, we will continue to be working with you. You've been members of the COG since our inception. That's a long history together. We just want to be of service. So he's going to hand out the city manager guides,
Thank you.
and
Thanks so much.
we wish you all the very best. Thank you.
When we're ready, I would like to ask Carrie for his input. We got COG input, and I just wanted to ask for your input on what your thoughts are.
Well, at a council member's request, we kind of had city staff here too. So if we're kind of dismissing Jim and the COG too, I'm going to sit up here however long we go. But if any staff wants to get up and speak, I think that way we could just kind of be done with it as well. And then I'll speak candidly.
Let me tell you, last time, when
I know.
No, thank you.
It's your job now.
It is.
I don't remember, just keep watching me. I don't remember how many years ago it was where, with the COG's help, they found a retired city manager who was able to come, agreed to come in on an interim basis and serve that function. I mean, he was here and did that. But the reason that the council did that was because we didn't have anybody on staff that was capable of serving that function.
Okay.
And I think that may be different now than what it was back then.
Yeah, I want to echo what Carrie said. From the folks in the cheap seats back there, not, just leave the personality and the person out of it if you would, because we keep talking about Carrie. What do you see as a department head, as a staff member? What do you see as possible hiccups along the way, going two different directions? If we appoint Carrie, I just said his name after I said I'm not going to say it. So,
I'm a big
Maybe
kid. I don't
tell us
care.
what you would like in a leader. You've had different kinds of leaders, and so what are the attributes, characteristics that you want in the next city manager? We know your experiences are different, and so that's, I think.
yeah, that's
I
critical.
didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're
But
good. I think
That
that's
would
important.
really help us with the recruiting process. For
Yeah,
sure.
but what I want to make sure is we don't jump ahead to the recruiting, but we look at, I'm more concerned is what, the inner piece and kind of, what I talked about earlier is it just feels like with everything that has happened, over the last 30, 60, 90 years, that the train has slammed on the brakes all of a sudden, and I think we need to get it moving. So what I'm curious to hear from you guys is, what are the potential showstoppers? What do you see as something that's going to continue to slam the brakes on and that we can move past one way or the other? If that
How we
makes sense.
keep the train on the tracks.
There you go. Get it rolling.
Of course. So in my honest opinion, regardless who you appoint as your interim, whether it be a internal staff member, moving names, internal staff member, or a firm, I think that decision needs to be made Tuesday. As Jim sat up here and said, to keep the train moving, to give continuity of government to your residents, to the staff, and to your panel of city council members, that decision doesn't need to be postponed. It doesn't need to be tabled. It needs to be made with either appointment of a person or a group or a firm, or through an ILA or MOU. That would be my personal opinion, and it is on the agenda Tuesday. That remains your continuity, and honestly, I'm not a resident, but honestly, hearing what Jim has to say, my honest opinion is, as we all like to say, there is an easy button. Sometimes you don't want the easy button is the very big red button in the room that everybody wants to push, and sometimes it's not the button you want to push or need to push. But in this case, I think that leaving what you have in place is okay. That's my thing. You already are working. We're already working without a city manager or interim in case through assistant city manager responsibilities, and we are doing what we are tasked to do. The police department is doing what it's tasked to do through my direction. The fire department's doing what they're doing through Terrence's direction. Administrative services are doing what they're doing. That's what you hire us for, and that's what we're tasked to do. That's why we're here. If we weren't, then it would fall to somebody else. And so I think Kerry's doing what he needs to do, and the new senior accountant, so you say, is doing what they need to do. And I think the train is on the tracks. You just need to make the decision and do that Tuesday.
Yep.
And then at that point, my recommendation is just finally pick and decide what you want to do. If you want to make that full appointment, or if you want to go out and do some candidate research and whatnot, but make that decision as well Tuesday or the next as far as that. But that's my honest opinion. Taryn, you want to come on?
Thanks.
If you make an interim appointment next Tuesday and it doesn't work out for some reason, you've got You got 3 days notice to reverse it. You just post another council meeting, and if it's not working out, make whatever changes is within the council wants to do.
I keep eating batteries.
That can't be good for your stomach.
I know, not enough acid and stress. All right, I think I'll defer.
Good on batteries and all that? Okay. So, sorry. It is, I mean, it's honestly, it's a little bit of a hot seat for us because, you know, we work for everybody in this room and we work for you guys and we work for Carrie and all this stuff. So I guess that's my way of saying the viewpoints and all I share are not necessarily the viewpoints of the fire department or anything. Y'all asking me for my view as a director and as somebody who's been through this process before. I heard two questions. One was the question about the interim, and the other was what we'd like to see in a city manager long term. Do you want to hear both those addressed?
No, I thought we'd have a workshop on the latter.
Okay.
Just let them.
Feedback on what we'd like to see in a city manager and also where we
Both.
want.
I think both.
Okay.
You want both? Okay.
But you'll be able to, we'll ask you that again.
What's
So
that?
you don't feel like what you want in a city.
Yeah,
manager.
yeah. I mean, and I think some of that carries over to, no pun intended, carries over to Kerry if he was the one that you appoint for interim. As a department head that was here during Jim Reed's tenure as our interim city manager, I've got nothing but good things to say about the COG. I think had it not been for Jim and Anna and frankly Mark and a lot of the teamwork we had during COVID, we wouldn't have been in the place we were with how we got through the pandemic. So that said, that was also a very narrow slice of reality. So we are, and as Jim said earlier, we're not in the same place we were back in 20 or 21. And so it may not be the same experience to bring someone from the outside this time. We did not have the succession planning that had taken place to have an assistant city manager to step up. So when I put that into context for my department, our battalion chief, Chief Sibley, does a great job. If I was to die on a collision on the way home tonight and he was to become your ad hoc or your interim fire chief, you'd have a different experience. I don't know that it'd be the same experience, a bad experience, a good experience. I have faith in him. I think if I didn't, he wouldn't be where he's at as my number two. And so when I put it in that context, it's easy for me to see from the leadership perspective that Kerry would be a natural selection. I know we're supposed to talk names, but this is the person in front of us, so it'd be kind of crazy for me to act like I don't know who we're talking about. And that's how we work in the fire service. And the police department works kind of the same way. So I think our thought process is going to follow that. We have someone naturally before us that it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. Now we know both the devils, not called Jim a devil or called Chicago devil or Kerry a devil. But just as a form of expression, what I like about sticking with somebody in-house is that we do know. And for better or worse, there's things he does that drive me absolutely crazy. There's things I do that drive my boss is crazy, and that's life. But we know Kerry, and we know what to expect. We know how to work with him. We've seen him go through the budget process. We've seen him kind of handle this, whatever we want to call this situation, and handle it with a fair amount of grace. And have confidence in. I have confidence in him to assume that role. The other part of that is that it's not forever. If I had to put Shane up to my position for a long period of time, I don't know that he'd be happy or that he would be the right person for the job or whatever. I would put in some trigger points. I'd say, okay, we're gonna let this run till January 1, and we're gonna evaluate the next 90 days, audits and all that. I can't really speak to that. I know that's a hot button topic and all that stuff, but I know that we've also hired somebody in the finance that's supposed to be working on that. But I don't want to go down that road because honestly, I don't have the clarity to talk about that. But it would make sense to me to say, well, we already have somebody in the mix, somebody we already work with, the department heads already trust, they already understand the whole budget process we just went through. And yes, like Jim said, the budget isn't linear, there's things that have to happen every day, but this is part of the person, this is the person that had a hand in that, as y'all did in council too. So the advantage is the budget's already there, the department head's already doing their job. If he absolutely does a horrendous job, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? He's just going to be taken off that interim thing and put back into ACM, and you guys are going to find someone else. You may realize in November this doesn't look good, and you start a recruiting process, and you tell Kerry, we appreciate your service as an interim, but we're going to start a recruitment process. We want to see you step back down to the ACM. And again, I'm not telling you what to do, but that would be a normal thought process to me. Now, also just on the inside versus outside hire, I'm a big fan of the inside hire for what we do because it works. The outside hire for our department was Shane. He came from Harris County, from a completely different fire department. And what he brought to the table with fresh blood and fresh perspective has been invaluable. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to bringing in from the outside. So I don't want to sound wishy-washy, but just like Jim said, there's no bad option, but don't feel like the decision you make tonight is going to be forever. If Kerry's a decision tonight and he just absolutely just, in December, you're like, what do we do? They just make another decision. But to echo what Matt said, yeah, we do need direction. It's not like we're lost sheep without a city manager, but it does have everyone from the ground up talking about what happens next. And the big concern for me with anybody is that every time we press a reset button, all of our projects that aren't like firmly founded, like a water tower or something like that, tend to go by the wayside. And then there tends to be about a year before we kind of come full circle and we educate everybody back. And that's a lot of lost time and a lot of lost growth for the community. So that's what I have to say in the interim piece. So I can talk about what I'd like to see in somebody, but you can have me do that now, or you have me come back up and do that later. That's at your pleasure.
Just like to hear just generally what you're thinking.
Okay.
Thank you, Terry. We appreciate that. And
Still talking.
Just a generality?
Just general.
Okay. I think one thing you need to ask yourself is, do you want a manager or a leader? And it's a city manager by design. The manager's point, and I mean, I've worked in the restaurant business. I've been a general manager, I've been an assistant manager. Everyone has their own way of doing things. The way I perceive this as a department head, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that you guys are the collective voice of the community, and the city manager is the one that you give a general heading to, like the captain of a ship, and he's the one that knows how to steer the rudder and how to operate all this stuff. Maybe you guys don't know how to do that, and maybe y'all don't know how to get there, but you know where you want to go. So if you want to hire a manager. Don't hire someone that's trying to blaze a trail and create a name for themselves. And I'm not saying that's what's happened, but that does happen. All projects, big and small. For every big flagship project there is, like the above ground water storage, there's a dozen other ones that may not be as attractive. And I can tell you from experience, not with just our former city manager, but a couple city managers, you might fly that flag up the pole and you guys never hear about it because it's not a glamorous project, it's not an important project. And as a department head, that's frustrating. So we need somebody that's fair, balanced, and equitable. That's how they did it in XXX. I did that. I came here. I was told, this isn't Austin. This isn't Dallas. You're just trying to be the big city. We all bring our experience to the table. You bring your accounting experience to the table. You bring, I don't know, you didn't fly anything in here, but you bring your aviation experience, leaders. We all bring something to the table, but it doesn't always have to fit exactly where we came from. We need to find something that's adaptable. The other aspect I would tell you is that we should probably look at doing an assessment center. We can interview somebody all day long and they can show very well. I know when I go to interview, I know what my best strengths are and I'm going to present those to you. I know what my weaknesses are and I'm going to give you a few of those weaknesses too so that I seem more human. And that sounds crafty, but I'm crafty. I mean, that's also why I'm pretty good at what I do. And I think that anybody that's in, and it's true, anybody that's in that kind of position is going to do that. But when you put someone on the spot and you say, all right, you're a good candidate, let's see a scenario. Here's what just happened. You just had this major incident, or you just had this conflict in staffing. Give them a couple of scenarios and see how they really perform on the fly. See what the person's really made out of. We do that. We're putting people through a 5-step process, a 60-day process to hire them on. When we hired our training chief, we had them come teach a class. We gave them a topic the day before and said, come in tomorrow with a 40-minute presentation, and you'd be surprised. Some people just couldn't do it. It sounded good on paper, not good in the classroom. And I think that's the way you're going to really find out what someone's made of by doing an assessment center.
In this brochure right here that can be asked are the same deal.
Anyway, I hope I didn't offend anybody or overstep my bounds, whatever.
I like that idea about a scenario or 2 or 3. I like that idea.
Yeah, because then you get to really see, how do you think, how do you operate, what's your motivation? Because I can come in here all day long and be like, I did all these great things.
Yeah, the other thing I'd really like to see is when we get down to whoever we get down to, is for them to interview with our department heads and let you guys do your thing and ask them, street questions of what about this, what about that? Because you know better than we do. Yeah, so I would love to see that.
Okay. Any other questions? Or?
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Taryn.
I do more than just fly.
Catrice, did you want to say anything? Or? Oh, but you will. Thank you.
Oh, okay, I got it on now. I hear myself echoing. But what I said was I agree with both the chiefs on what they think should happen. I mean, this is the fourth city manager I have had, so we'll be going into a fifth.
You have a lot of insight.
Unfortunately. I would say, as like Taryn had said, Carrie is already doing, sorry, Carrie, but hey, we're doing it. Carrie is already doing the job. It has been a little frustrating not having someone already in place. The last 2 times we already had someone in place when the transition happened. So my workers, our employees or coworkers, or they're concerned because they don't know, does this mean like they're going to get rid of all of us, or they're going to put other people in, or are they going to let go of one of us or two? It's a lot of uncertainty. And right now we need to know, because it kind of flipped everything upside down. So we just need to know where we all stand. To have us on a rocky road like we are right now doesn't help morale. It really doesn't. So with Carrie already doing the job, I understand y'all are focused on the audits. I completely understand that, being that we are behind. But like Taryn said, if it's not permanent, if you put him in here because he's already doing the job, and later on down the line you think, nope, we want to go with someone else, then Carrie can step back and go back to being the CFO and the assistant city manager, rather than just being the interim. I think that's all.
Thank you so much, Catrice.
I think the one thing that there is, you need somebody, in the boss's job. I understand all that. But the great thing about it is we've got tremendous people. We've heard nothing but praise for our department heads and for the people who work for them. And I guess from my perspective, I have 100% confidence in those people, that even without us saying, okay, Jim is it and Mary's this and Billy's that, they're going to take care of business. And yeah, Chief, I understand, big time projects are going to, get waffled around a little bit. But between now and a reasonable period of time, we're going to go right ahead and they're going to take care of us no matter what we do, unless we do something really stupid. And and I understand the train, but part of the problem for some of us is the train got rerouted 3 or 4 years ago, 2 years ago, 16 weeks ago, I don't know, pick a number. And I want to talk about the route. And I think that's what the voters said in May. Not everybody appreciated where the Union Pacific was going. And I think we need to talk about that. And I think that that's going to be a huge part of who the city manager person that we look for is going to be. Do we want another person out there that's going to try to run their version of the railroad? Or are we going to run the railroad as the elected representatives of the people? And I think rushing into this, and I'm not suggesting that we're not, and I accept your point, Dorothy, absolutely. But we haven't even had a chance to talk about, what does virtual look like? I mean, how many places do you know that they don't really have a bookkeeping, accounting department anymore, because they send it out to Joe Smith Enterprises, and they've got, some of the best CPAs in the world working for them part-time. I mean, that's happening all the time. Is that an option? What kind of an option is that? What kind of pricing structure does it have? What kind of success rate have people had? We don't know, because we haven't had a chance to talk about it or look about it. And we're sure now not going to find out between now and Tuesday. I can guarantee you that.
What I'm hearing loud and clear from you guys is that the staff wants a name. They want an interim. And what we do long-term, we can have an interim for 6 months. We can have an interim for a year until, we understand what we want. I don't think it'll take that long, but this is just the interim discussion. This isn't the permanent discussion.
I understand that perfectly, but I don't think I'm making my point to you.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
The consensus pretty much is that Carrie's going to be the interim.
I'm not,
Well, no.
it's not a consensus for me. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, the wind blew that way.
Okay?
Hey, Pat,
So-
can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah.
It's on your line. Don't mean to derail
No.
your train. But while the consensus may be Carrie or not, from the director's standpoint, we have projects that are in motion, and basically, you're not saying that, whether the consensus is Carrie or the consensus is not Carrie, or it's a group or whatever, a resolution has to be made naming somebody as the interim city manager, because those projects have to have continuity of the hierarchy of your levels. Like, I can't, those projects literally will continue or we will lose them, such as grants, because the city has not established that. And whether his job description says he would, it needs to be resoluted, so to say, that says, yes, we recognize his job description and we recognize him. And then, 3 months down the road, you're going to say, if you change that and say, well, we're going to change that to a firm until we find somebody, you would resolute that as well. And then, so that way, there's an official document that says, hey, when somebody says, who is your city manager, because they have to sign off on this because they're,
Those are the rules.
those are the rules. And so that's basically what it was. So you're just, that's our point from my standpoint as a director, is we have to name somebody or something, someone, and it has to be resoluted that way, so that those projects continue. So when they ask, otherwise they're just like, well, you don't? Okay, well, we don't know what's going on with you.
And I appreciate that. But I also, just off the top of our heads, just from what Jim said, we got two perfectly valid options. Go with it, the person on staff, or the unnamed person on staff sitting at the end of our table, or let the COG do it.
Or he also said there are firms out there.
But quickly, boom, those two options can be done Tuesday. But what about option 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8? And maybe we don't want to be flipping interims. There's too many questions and too many unresolved problems from the last go-around that we need to sit down as a council and try to come to some consensus of what we think, what people told us. That I understand the whole point of let's get somebody in there, but there's nothing wrong with Matt, I don't know what the timeline you're talking about is, but I can't believe it's more than, it's going to be shorter than 60 days before you really have to have a no kidding. So I just feel like we're getting a time compression problem again, and we very seldom come up with good answers in time compression problems.
Yeah, well, it is a time compression because I didn't have any notice that our city manager was leaving.
Oh, no.
It was a quick resignation, so that's the reality that we're dealt. And so we just need to step up and like Jim said, we're not going to do anything wrong. We're just going to discuss it and decide what the next steps are. And no step is irreversible. Like Neil said, we can say this is interim for 60 days and reassess it in 60 days. We can say we're going to call a meeting within 72 hours and reverse our decision. So I'm not feeling, there is pressure on us. There is
A hell of a
pressure
lot
on
of pressure.
It's like cutting your arm. It starts bleeding. Are you going to put a Band-Aid on it, or are you going to look at 33 options?
Right.
We got stuck with the deal with Dalton left. We got to make some quick decisions temporarily. They're not permanent.
Right.
But we got to get some stuff done because we have to continue to operate this city. And as they said, we got to have somebody in charge. It may not be Carrie. We got to do something somewhere, and even if it's temporary, we got to get something going.
So,
Now. Isn't that what he's doing right now?
He's not official. It's not a resolution yet until Tuesday, if that's the direction we wanted to go. So Carrie, do you want to? What?
Roxanne was about to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, with the discussion, I would like us to focus on two options, the COG or Carrie. I think going out beyond that, I don't think we're ready to start doing that. And I think we've had, it's kind of the idea of what you're dealing with. And we know what we're dealing with in both situations. One thing I wanted is to ask Carrie, because we're talking about you all the time. I need your opinion. Number one that I want to know is, can you get the audits done and be interim? And I have to be assured of that. And so that was one question I had for you. And then whatever else, I want, we listened to Jim Reed. I think we need to listen to you.
You want to stand up or?
I'll abstain.
No, that's
Let's
not
call a short
acceptable.
recess. No, I mean, in all honesty, probably not. I mean, so really, the timing of all this was not ideal. So, however, the one caveat I'll throw in there, because yes, I probably do, to Jim's point, whether it was writing a letter for Matt or certain things like this, I have neglected some of the CFO audit stuff over the last 2 weeks, or even 3 weeks prior to the budget workshop. So going on a month, but and I will throw this in there too, because I've told y'all personally this, and so I'm going to put it on record though too, and I'm going to look at someone in the audience. However, like the audits were originally in there that it said it was going to be August. And so even also to say that we hadn't done any work on the prior ones, that's not true. And so that's where I do think that people articulate certain things and will use misinformation or anything like that. But I mean, here, when we get up at public comment, it's frustrating from my chair to hear certain things that and it does kind of suck in government that if you go down a path, it's always going to take little meandering, offshoots and stuff like this. So when we put that original audit timeline in there, we knew then we had to go get the budget amendment approved the next month. And so kind of whenever you started asking for it, that even that August, I think, or even if it was September, that original timeframe was
July. It was July.
Was it? Mm-hmm. That they were going to have the audit reports issued?
Mm-hmm.
One of them,
Okay. So or the 2020.
2020 balance sheet.
Okay,
That's right.
but yeah,
You're
that's
right.
not an
You're
audit
right,
report. And so that's where, like I
That's
said,
a
we can
starting
always
open
throw out
point.
misinformation.
Right.
And so really, I think it was August was really when they were going to have both of the reports done. So, however, did Brooks Watson understand really the hurdles that we were going to have to go to get them the information? And probably not. But so if my biggest priority right now was one, kind of doing multi-hats, then no. There are going to be certain things that I have kind of neglected. And onboarding a staff is not the best time to have done this too. But I mean, it is what it is. And that's where me and Dorothy would usually agree. Like, we don't get to keep blaming the past or anything like that. We are where we are, and let's figure out. So for me, I would need some help. So whether that's 10 hours, 20 hours, do I think 40 hours a week from the COG is necessary? No, that's going to be overkill. But at the end of the day, no different than when we presented in the budget. If we paid the same $36,000 to the COG this year, and again, it wasn't for 6 months that Jim said, it was slightly less. I mean, it's semantics, but again, sometimes people get hung up on semantics. So here, at the end of the day, no different than a road study that we tried to get y'all to adopt, anything like there, we have the money. So right now, to ease staff, my only concern is if we name an interim city manager, and it's not me, and again, I don't really care naming myself, or y'all can single me out with my name or anything like that. What does that do? I answer to that interim city manager? Because at the end of the day, they don't know the day in, day out operations. So Jimbo had kind of pointed it out there, like in guidance, that do I need to be taking 2 hours out of my day here, 2 hours out of my day here, if my main focus needs to be the audits? So it's kind of like a weird, balance of what do we want to see? So if the COG can provide some man hours to help facilitate, like I don't think you can name 2 interim city managers or anything like that, but at the end of the day, if they can take some of the workload off, the city manager workload off of me, I still think operationally it makes more sense for me to be interim city manager. However, the day-to-day stuff that I need to prioritize my focus on somewhere else, that's where we're kind of in a weird spot. So but then we can even talk about the hiring process of the next city manager or anything like that later on, because, again, if to this point, if there's a way that the COG, and like I said, I think Jim kind of hinted at it, that would they be okay with doing 3 days a week? And I think he said no. And so that's where, to my mind, do we need 40 hours a week? No. But do we need something? Yes. And so we're in this weird spot of what do we need to do?
I think we can probably direct them what we want, can't we?
No, yeah, to your point, but are they going to say, yes, we'll do that? So like I said, I think the way I took his comment was, no, they might not be willing to just do the 3 days a week. Like, is this like an all or nothing from them? And then, whoever y'all designate to make sure. But at the end of the day, even if it's a little bit of overkill, there are still so many processes that, like to Terrence's point earlier, that we don't, and people, even Jim used the term robust. And like I said, I kind of smirked at it because there are information that people put out there, whether residents or y'all agree with it or not, you will always get my honest opinion on it. And, there were unfactual things said at one of the budget workshops by a resident that then I tried to prove to y'all that, wasn't the case, because one of it was like an unsustainable path forward with whatever we were presenting. But I mean, really, what I showed y'all was like about $3.2 million to include the ARPA money over the last 2.5 years with the previous city manager. That to me doesn't seem unsustainable. That actually seems really, really positive. But, statistics can be misleading, however you want to use them or anything like this. So at the end of the day, just since someone else brought it, so the senior accountant started 2 Mondays ago. So I will be able to delegate some more of my things that I would do in a normal week to her plate. But just the unique timing of where we're at is kind of, we're in a rock and a hard place.
I'd like to buy you some more time.
Right.
Let me ask you another question then, Carrie. What if we did something like hire the COG and they said they go month to month? Once the audits are done and you're kind of got a little off your plate and you feel you could take it there, we could then say, okay, we're going to change our interim to you until we get our permanent person in place.
No, and that's
When I talked to Jim, that CITCOG was only going to sit a person down here to be ears. They were not going to relieve any work off Kerry. Is that, did I misunderstand that? He said he was just, whoever they put in here were just strictly going to be his ears, and they were not going to take any duties away from our staff. So they're actually not giving him any help. If I heard that.
Well, I think they would still, and again, it's not that we have 40 hours of work for a resident to come up. Depending on, obviously, I don't think they're going to, just like city staff, wouldn't just sit idly by. There are certain things that then we could say, and again, it might be a fresh set of eyes, that, hey, let's look at all these job descriptions because they don't really match duties as assigned. So if the COG personnel that's over here for 40 hours a week, to include Jim Reed, the other 8 hours, or whether it's Urian, at the end of the day, if they're really going to be sitting up here performing 80 hours a week or 40 hours a week for the city of Morgan's Point Resort, then that's not a bad option. We have money in the budget. So at the end of the day, I know sometimes council's leery on spending certain things like this. Some council members are. However, at the end of the day, just to make sure we're moving forward, it's not a viable, it's not an awful option. But I mean, again, then we're not deciding something else until later on the road. So, really for me, if I can get, let's just say 20 hours of stuff that, between me and Dalton, we had 80 hours of work, and let's just say there was a 10-hour overlap. But if I can get that 15 to 20 hours off my plate over the next 2 months, then yes, I'm pretty sure we're going to get the audits done and then on time.
Okay.
So
One of the things when I talked to Jim Reed, I guess as all of this was happening, I called him because I was concerned about the money, and that's just where I'm at. But he explained that, we are, and it makes perfect sense, we're already paying, or we would be paying a city manager, and so it's not going to change our budget at all. There'll be no difference.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that, just because someone who's watching on the internet might not, well, they're going to spend $36,000, but they wouldn't do blank. Or
On a road.
that's an arbitrary number, so don't quote me on the number.
Yeah.
But so that's just something I think needs to be.
No, yes, obviously we have the city manager's salary budgeted. So obviously, and again, obviously the $36,000 was 3 years ago. So that's probably more just honestly that no different than a compensation study. That dollars went up. They're probably underpaid, just like what city staff thinks we are too. So even if that number is $45,000 this year, but at the same thing is if they're going to give us the 40 hours a week, that to Jim's point, and it wasn't the full 6 months, but if that buys us 2 or 3 months, some of these things to help city staff, I don't think is a bad use of taxpayer money. And so, but again, and I'm not to belabor some of these other ones, that's why then we brought some of these other things. And so if y'all are looking for staff recommendations and stuff like this, it goes both ways. So sometimes when we put something on the agenda or anything like this, so even if we get to the hiring of the next city manager, right now, and or interviewing for the city secretary, stuff like this, sometimes whether y'all like me or not, or if I'm a better version of whoever or not, it doesn't matter to me. We're all grown adults here. We all are here to do not what's in the best interest of the team and the employees. It's a weird subset because there's an employee team, there's a council team, but we're all here to try to benefit the residents of the city.
Yeah, I think we've already established that the staff is pretty much behind Kerry. Is that pretty much established, that we're talking to everybody? They like him and they think they have confidence in him. So what do we need to do to proceed to, where do y'all want to go to on this? We're walking around and we're not getting anywhere. I mean, it seems like we're getting the same consensus. We're getting the same consensus, and I'm trying to think where do we need to get to with that consensus?
Harry, let me ask one question, which is going to be nameless person. I'm going to give you a hypothetical, looking for just a pretty simple answer. So we appoint you interim city manager with about a 120-day reassessment, which there's rationale to that. That puts it in January. We get through the holidays, which are going to be tumultuous, and I don't think that's fair to assess anybody during the holidays. We appoint you interim city manager with a 100-day reassess mark with, like Chief said, benchmarks along the way that we could always come back to and say, you're not cutting it, get out. If we brought in the COG in some capacity, preferably an individual full-time to assist, and with the senior accountant on board, would you be comfortable and confident in your abilities and the abilities of the team to continue to move the city forward and get those damn audits done? Is that doable? And I know that's a hypothetical, and there's all kinds of things that will get in the way.
I mean, with whatever really the auditors have the trial balance, I got to make, and then I needed to do a confirmation that I had missed or something like this, but we're right there for them to start field work. So my hope is.
On the beginning balances or on the first audit?
The beginning balances. But so either way, they're still going to have to do field work on those beginning balances. So I just kind of roll those part and parcel, because really the first audit will obviously include the beginning balance and then the 2022 audit, 2021. But yeah, so I mean, really, if the benchmark is the audits, my goal was still to hopefully have them done no later than November, December. And so really, if we said 100 days, 120 or anything, and again, knowing that we had this, and again, I hate making excuses or anything like this, but really this last month was unique to say the least. So however, we are where we are. And so at the end of the day, if you're going to give me another 40 hours, because I mean, we can talk about this later on, that, even the robust staff, like I said, because one of y'all had made the point, does a city our size need an assistant city manager? And probably my answer is no. And I mean, that's me throwing myself under the bus. However, there was a meeting that I didn't go to that I know the previous city manager would have gone to with the K-Tempo TAC. I didn't have it in my bandwidth. However, I do think we can talk about in the future that there's easy ways to shift things off of whoever the next city manager's plate is, whether that's keeping me as the assistant city manager or finding another position that would help us in then basically our FTE count would have been the same at City Hall. And so really there are certain ways to, because y'all had brought up that our average compensation per employee was high or anything like this. If there's a way to restructure City Hall to a sense of where we have a city manager, not necessarily an assistant city manager, but we have like an assistant or a management analyst, that there's always going to be these projects out there that that I might not, or whoever the city manager would be, to have in their day-to-day, capacity to do.
And we don't have a grant person, so grants have to go somewhere, and we need grants.
So
Yeah.
to your point, yes, I'm pretty confident that we will have the first and second audit in this calendar year.
Okay, and my apologies. I know when I turned and said those damn, it wasn't hostile. It was, we are sick of them too, so those damn audits. No, that answered my question.
Roxanne?
So I have a question, and maybe we need to see the document, but if we name Carrie as interim, what is that name, COG? So I want to make sure there's no
Say
confusion.
that again?
If we name Carrie interim, what do we name COG? So, and I would have to talk to Jim Reed about that, because they step in as an interim city manager. So we just need to be careful on that, yeah.
You don't need to name them anything. If they're just providing some additional administrative help or clerical help, you're just doing an interlocal agreement with them to.
Yeah, I just need to see the
provide
agreement.
that
That's all I'm
service.
saying.
Yeah,
I-
and then,
And
but
would
then
they
it'd
Don't
be a
have the
separate,
agreement.
yeah, but then it'd be a separate contract if you decide to use them to do the job search. Well, then that's a separate, separate issue.
But I think Kerry's point, that given what he's got going and trying to meet those deadlines and all the stuff, and then, as you pointed out, pretty soon, it's going to be no more business being done until after the first of the year. And if we gave him the breather, just get the unfinished business done and let the COG do the interim thing. And unless Jim changes it, if it's on a month by month, 2 weeks and 1st of January, thanks, Jim, we don't need you guys anymore, you're out of here.
Yep.
It seems to me, because we don't need him passing out in the damn office because of a heart attack or something because of too much work. I mean, there's a lot of stress out there. I understand all
Balancing
that.
short-term with long-term.
Yeah,
you know,
but if we
so-
did,
I feel maybe it would just give the city a break too.
Yeah.
'Cause it
Right.
feels
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
been, but so I think what we should do is, we've discussed things tonight. I'd like to see us all go home and really look at the proposal that the COG sends us. We'll have them talk to us at our workshop again, and then by next Tuesday, I think it's gonna, to me, it would be like, we're gonna say, we're gonna give Carrie a little help here and hire the COG, or we're gonna figure out a way to get some administrative help in, one or the other. But let's see what the COG says with their proposal they're
just
sending
as
us.
a time thing, did Jim say that they were going to try to get something to you tomorrow?
Yes.
That's what I.
Do they, okay, does he understand that tomorrw is called Saturday? I mean, I understand that, but I mean, that's putting,
He knows tonight's Friday, and he's.
yeah, I mean, because he's got a 4-month-old at
It's
home.
not apples to apples, but yeah, it kind of comes with the seat here. Or,
Yeah, I understand that. It just kind of puts us under, it puts everybody under time compression.
Oh, you would?
On. Is it now working?
Yeah.
They handled the unknown. Jim was here one day a week, but he had a staff member here the rest.
He told us that already, yeah.
Okay, well, your
told us
question
today.
was what they did. What happened is, you remember John Keela? Okay, Jim handled a lot of that. Well, Donna handled it too, but Jim handled that all the time. His staff member handled it all the time. There was other outside issues, short of lawsuits, that came in that they handled. So if Carrie didn't have help, and it doesn't have to be the COG, somebody, if Carrie doesn't have the help, then he's handling that and he's not getting anything done. So to answer your question, because none of y'all were here then, well, except for the attorney, that there was a lot of issues that you never know when there's going to be a fire.
That's always
right?
the case,
You
though.
never know. And so that's what happened. And so they were here, but he was here only one day a week, but he had a staff member. to answer that, and then they could contact him if
Right.
it
He
goes.
said that a while ago that he would have.
Yeah,
a
so
staff
you need
member here.
somebody in.
However hours, many hours we determined
Right.
we wanted them.
Right.
And then he would be on contact 24/7, if I understood that. I was just asking about what duties they would perform if we were paying
Well,
for them.
that was the duties that they performed then, because
Yeah,
none of y'all knew,
But that's
so.
got to be contracted probably
Yeah.
this time too, separately, the way I'm here understanding. So what I'm saying is, you
Yeah.
want to look at.
Thank you.
It would have, get everything emailed, is he gonna email it? Did he say he was gonna email?
Yeah, that, I mean, and then y'all just
And
need
look it
to,
over, and then I guess we're gonna meet again Tuesday.
right.
Well, thank you. You need to, you probably want to give them, ask them to give you a proposal for having a staff person 20 hours a week, a staff person 40 hours a week, and then what the proposal would be for handling the solicitation for the, or, you know, the handle the employment.
And Carrie, he is coming to the workshop?
That's what he had told me.
Okay, perfect.
Unless y'all didn't want the proposal type deal, so. Well, who's gonna reach out to Jim? Y'all want me to do it? Y'all as a, okay, well, I knew he said the proposal needed to be emailed to me, but I didn't know if one of y'all wanted to actually call him and then he would send me the proposal, just so I'm not.
Can you just do it all, and that way there's no
Yeah.
confusion? Okay.
Yeah, and nothing falls
Think
through
he's
the crack,
expecting it.
hopefully.
In that
Yeah.
case, I know we've had a long night, I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
No, not yet, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, what you got?
So when are we meeting again? Because I've heard Monday and Tuesday. Are we having a special working group on Monday or
We're
just?
meeting Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon prior to the city
Okay,
council meeting.
I just was hearing two different
Think
days of the
Tuesday at
week
five.
and.
Tuesday at 5, is that
yes.
correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we have been, Tuesday at 5,
Yeah, well, I was just clarifying it, sir.
no problem. Y'all good with that?
Yes.
A motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.